Rolf wanted more. But his wife just wanted to buy new clothes at Holger and Manfred and maybe at Claudius and Alexander. Just. Rolf knew exactly what that meant, so he first made himself comfortable with a tasty, freshly squeezed wild boar smoothie and had a look at the newspaper. It contained the everyday madness. Some bard had probably become Germania's Got Talent, managers of the farm and mining industry complained about a 3% women's quota decided by the Council of Elders and threatened to immigrate to the east, Rügen wanted to vote to leave the Germanic community, as if it would help an island to separate itself from a large continent. The citizens would certainly not vote for such a stupid thing, and something about burgers and a White House. Rolf only appreciated this collective stupidity with a shake of his head, put the newspaper away and thought about his past conquest. Things could have been quite different then, if only the Council of Elders had decided otherwise. The Council of Elders met and discussed a possible expansion to the west. The goal should be to invade an underdeveloped snail-eating faction called Gaul. Britain was also under discussion, but due to a certain Brexit, it was decided not to kill an already dying opponent. They would probably do that themselves. The question was how brutal they wanted to be with Gaul.
Let's take mercenaries. We don't want to waste German lives.
No, we already had that in another timeline.
Let the dog do that.
No, we get problems with Peter. After the next proposal, everyone became silent. It was so unspeakably cruel. Nevertheless, following the silence that lasted for minutes, all voted for it. The beardless Arminius read the final decision. Send the women. In the whole empire there were only 160 manly ladies left, so supplies had to be produced. But from where? Neither the assembly halls nor the stables allowed female armed forces to be recruited. The mercenary idea might have been easier. While the brightest minds in the Council of Elders pursued this question, the diplomat Roger went to Cambodia, Gaul, to bring a formal declaration of war to the authorities there. Since Roger was not the brightest candle on the diplomat cake, this did not go as planned. Meanwhile, it was found out that the women were probably at home at the shrine of Freya, so they were built in every town to ramp up recruitment as quickly as possible. It didn't take long until the first screaming women were ready to teach the enemy's fear. From afar, however, they looked less feminine than expected. Must be due to the cool climate. Arminius, who suffered from a lack of beard, ordered the ladies to gather near Trier. There would be a nice shopping mall and the city was also strategically located, so he made his way to the southwest. Many generals, including Rolf, did the same and started their journey as well. In the meantime, the Gauls had wrapped Roger around their finger and he agreed to a trade contract. He then wanted to talk to the British, but well, when he finally got his hands on him, the British didn't want to accept an alliance. Unbelievable. Not much happened in the coming weeks. More and more women were brought westwards and the male soldiers at home were sent into early retirement so that they could take care of the household and children, and above all to save money. Nail varnish and lip gloss expenses exploded. Somehow you had to take countermeasures. All this went on cheerfully until suddenly a group of women were attacked. And it wasn't the Gauls who did that. No, it was the British. Apparently they didn't like the fact that the Germans wanted to take care of the French, but that's a long tradition and they themselves had enough to do on their island. Facing up against the vast might of the enemy army, however, the ladies did not pull their tails in, but bravely stormed towards the blue trousers and gained some experience. The battle itself was lost. Since the one whose beard didn't grow camped together with Rolf and an army only a few hundred feet away. No! Meters! We have the metric system here, so it is meters! Since the one whose beard didn't grow camped together with Rolf and an army only a few hundred meters away, the counterattack needed to take place immediately. War with the British was not the worst thing that could happen to a good German soldier. So as it happened, the beard refuser came with his 1,400 women and met the 1,100 man strong British troop. This should be the first test for a pure women army. Should they be victorious here, the goals would be no problem at all. Encouraged by Arminius' speech,
Nun, tapfere Krieger, sage ich euch, kämpft mutig, wie man es von euch erwartet. Kämpft wie Männer.
they marched off. Rolf took over the left flank, the old men the right. The women were very well mannered, even though all of them wore the same outfit. All bickering about their clothing had to be postponed until the enemy had been dealt with, though this evening's yoga class sure would be interesting. To add a splatter of brown to the blue British trousers, the woman had a secret weapon. No, not that. They screamed. And when I say they screamed, they screamed. They screamed louder than mothers at the sight of Take That. They screamed like they would read a screenplay. So, a little bit loud. Without any problem, they cut their way through the enemy rows like hot butter through a knife. Rolf and his riders only had to mop up the leftovers. Thunderous screaming accompanied the great victory. The women's camp was a terrifying sight. The constant screaming, the endless gossip, the hair everywhere. Arrigo, Arrigoga. Peter had enough. He packed his stuff and wanted to leave. Far away. It would be best to go east. They were always friendly to refugees, so he was sure that he would be warmly welcomed there. A small number of his loyal guard went with him. He did not let himself be convinced otherwise, not even when Arminius with his bold streamlined face died and left him as leader. Rolf was to take over his business and lead the empire. Peter had this transmitted by carrier pigeon. He also snatched the heir status from old Hermann and transferred it to Rolf. On the less splendidly developed roads to the east, Peter was attacked by rude barbarians. Since he was outnumbered, it did not look good for Peter. But he was a true warrior. He resorted to the shy snake, a tactic in which he repeatedly penetrated the enemy ranks and pulled out again before it became too dangerous. He was very skilled at it. So skilled that he was entitled to nothing but victory. As if it had been nothing, he continued his journey. Rolf on the Western Front missed his brave buddy. But he did not have much time to grieve. After all, they were at war. People painted in blue wanted to be defeated. Rolf copied Arminius' speech
Kämpft wie Männer.
And confronted the enemy. He liked the view. But much more he liked the fact that the women swept away the enemies in a sheer bloodlust, as if they were breadcrumbs on the kitchen floor. Rolf wanted to cut off the British supply on the mainland. Samarobriva had to fall. So there was only one direction. Well, towards Samarobriva. Battle after battle followed. The blue trousers screamed. The women screamed. Even Rolf screamed because he was so surprised by how loud his ladies were. But not only that, they were also victorious. The old Hermann, deprived of his heir status, wanted to regain his honor by the glorious conquest of Bordesholm. He besieged the city. A summer passed, a winter passed, a summer, a winter, a summer, summer, summer. A climate change had struck. Fortunately, the sea level had not risen yet, otherwise Bordesholm would have already sunk. The Council of Elders quickly passed a law banning the use of ox carts on 2 roads in the Empire to reduce exhaust fumes. Summer passed, winter returned, Britain wanted a ceasefire. Ha! And Hermann wanted his fame. The conquest of Bordesholm was finally imminent. But he died during the first charge. May he rest in peace. In the east, Peter wanted to conquer the delightful district Domus Dulcis Domus, but he failed at the first attempt. And at the second. And at the third. And at some point it worked out. Despite his grey hair, Peter did not want to retire. He marched on alone with his bodyguard, achieved victories with ease. He was truly a true warrior. That's true. Even in almost hopeless situations, he could always pull his head out of the noose. One enemy army after another was afraid of his ass. Oh shit! Maybe this will help. It worked. One enemy army after another was afraid of his assembled deadly riders. Rolf, who remembered the decision of the Council of Elders, which originally determined the Golds to be the true enemy, negotiated a ceasefire with the British under the condition that they would have to pay generously. The treaty was signed just in time, because suddenly Dacia again made an offer you could not refuse. And attacked from the southeast without further warning. The German tribal brothers were never good at fighting on two fronts at the same time. Fortunately, they did not have to. Rolf took his brave men, women, with him to take a sweet revenge. Although the Dacians had not conquered Mogontiacum, they spilled a lot of beer. A good German could not let that go unpunished. Peter, who had heard of these horrible circumstances, ended his bloody raid in the east to help Rolf. In 254 BC, they were reunited and finally fought side by side against the common enemy. It felt good. Despite terrain advantage and better equipment, the Dacians were completely crushed.
Jagt und tötet sie alle!
P&R set course for the Dacian capital, but met an immense army of brown barbarians at the Iazügen camp. They knew that if they were victorious today, the way would be clear, and victory over those people with their strange diplomats would be almost certain. But the day was still young. The Dacians surprised with the 4-4-2 lineup. While most of the troops were still defending from the back, the attacking line consisted of two strong general units. Peter, Rolf and another beardless general, who was so unimportant that his name was not remembered, countered by leaving the ladies on the bench to force the enemy generals into intense tacklings. Once that had been done, the rest would be like a training session. They were successful, hardly any losses, an advantage for the dangerous trio. The women were then substituted and were allowed to have fun with the remaining clearly frightened units. After the final whistle, they stayed on the pitch for a long time and celebrated their huge victory. They completely deserved these 3 points. The path was clear, and Porolissum not far away. And after a few weeks, the day had come. Rolf was shocked. His wife was back, packed with various bags full of new clothes, and the desire to buy new furniture. Together with him. Rolf wanted more. But not this.